This workflow video overview is going to cover spacemaker going into 3ds Max for graphical presentations. So here I have spacemaker on the screen. I have the location of our sun. I have the maxed up building. I have the units all joined together, some greenery, a site, and I've gone through and done some of the analysis, the wrap analysis, and the standard analysis here. My goal is to get it from this to look something like this. So I'm just going to take you through the workflow that I've used to make this happen. So back here in spacemaker, I have things like outdoor areas, sun, daylight, microclimate, wind, views, noise, and solar panels. And I want to make this look like this. So here, what I can do with the design proposals is you can click on the ellipses here and you can either send it directly to Revit, or if you want to send it to a purely graphical program, you can export it as an OBJ. And so what I have here, so on the screen here is 3ds Max, and all I've done is I've imported in that option here from spacemaker. Now a couple of things to note. To bring this in, you would go down and go and import, and then you would go for an OBJ file, and this is the OBJ file that I've exported out of spacemaker. What it has also captured is information about the coordinate system here. So when you do bring this in, when you bring it into a program which doesn't have a coordinate system, you will need to move it. So some of the things I've done here inside of 3ds Max is I've moved this to best fit the graphic that I'm trying to get here. So just a little tip, but you can see here the data has been transferred across into 3ds Max. Other things that I've done here, just to orientate you around the design, so I can grab items from the model and then grab shapes from there and then detach them as needed, or potentially use sub-mapping materials to better graphically display what I'm trying to get out for the design intent. I brought in some other contextual models here. Again, these are just OBJs, or you could work with the FBX files. I'm using the V-Ray rendering engine, and if you have 3ds Max, I'd recommend V-Ray as being your go-to engine. It's got some great tools for materials. It also has diagrammatic materials as well, so you can go and grab all these and use them. So if you need like wireframe, which has an emissive setting here to make things glow, you can do that for basic graphics. And we also have just simple tools that I've done to create things like this sine wave. So inside of 3ds Max, you've got all these fantastic tools to drive different shapes. So you can do this and create these shapes and then adjust the range for that particular sine wave. And a lot of this is located here within splines or max creation graphs that you want to be using this. So this is how I've done it. I've just gone and created these lines and then just run a sweep along those splines. I also have the sun here, and because back here in spacemaker this is actually set for Copenhagen, so in Denmark, so I want to make sure that the sun back here, when we zoom out, it is correct to the face of that building. So back here in 3ds Max, that sun is actually set up to work in Copenhagen, Denmark over here. So just little things you can do should you want to put your building in a site. And then you can see here, as I go to adjust the hours, from 7 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. It works to the orientation of the building and its location and what it was intended. Last little things here, I've just got some 3D text. So I know you could be doing these in Photoshop. I actually prefer to do this inside of Max, have it all 3D, so I can just use the text tool, which is here in 3ds Max. So you can go to here to use the text tool, and I've just done a couple of little things to modify it just for graphical output. So I just use a mesh select and a face extrude, and then finally here a few other things like just creating a base for the ground, just creating some arrows from lines, pretty simple stuff. And then to run this out and render it, I typically just use a V-Ray camera here. And to run that V-Ray render, you can go quite high with your settings. If you haven't used V-Ray before, you can just use the presets, but if you want to do something really quick, I would typically go for a 1280 by 720 just to get a basic render out. You don't need displacement and stuff on. I would change the image sampler to bucket and then just crank that down to 4. And just make sure that is 4, not 44 or 2044. And here for the default, it will go to brute force for the primary engine. The secondary engine is light cache. Just put that on 200. And this will give you okay results. So if I go and hit render here, this should do it pretty quickly. The previous render was a lot bigger. But I've just dropped the resolution, and you can see this will run it out pretty quick. So it's just a nice quick setting to get a render out. The last thing just to cover here, another great feature for diagrams if you want to add your vegetation, is with Chaos Group with V-Ray as the render engine, you do get this Cosmos browser, and this actually has a number of presets built into it. So there's a huge amount of 3D context, similar to what you'd have like with tools like Enscape. Some of the newer ones that I quite like here are the surfaces and splines. So in order to do the trees that I have here, you can use these tools. You just click on load into your model, and then it just follows a spline. So back here inside of 3ds Max, these are actually proxies. So these ones are hidden, they're just off to one side, but proxies basically allow you to look at the model in a lightweight form. So it kind of like creates it to a lightweight mesh. And then these are instanced around the spline. This is the tool that actually controls it here. So Norway maples, and there is a spline which controls it. And if I just go to the top, this is the rectangle. So with selecting that particular rectangle that it's following, that one there, we can drive those trees. So if the site gets bigger or smaller, you can see that those trees are scattered along that spline. So that's the basic workflow. Should you want to reuse some of the data outside of spacemaker, you can again take that data, export it out as an OBJ, and then you can bring that in here to 3ds Max, and you can run renders out for producing diagrams that could go in reports. So you might not do this with every option, but it can be quite a handy presentation tool to take those designs, work them up into something that you'd want to put into a presentation. So that's the workflow.